began was to create a space. It's kind of like a mix of Facebook meets Amazon, where all the different resources, whether it's a program or a product or a service or free content, could all be in one place, and people could tune in, and with AI and whatnot, it'll be able to ask questions and get a sense of where someone's at, and then deliver kind of a step-by-step, either whether it's free or paid stuff to help that person find a little bit better feeling and connect to the right resources, whether that's a personal coach or a workshop or whatever. So,
well, one of the things I talked about in my book, Fiercely Loyal, was I talked about that businesses of the future, and I said there that businesses of the future must create a community. Since the pandemic, I flipped that around and said, no, businesses now must create a community and put a business in it. And so what you're doing and what you're creating is a community that offers the resources that business can operate in, but it's a community first, because human beings are tribal. We need community. We want a place where we can feel like it's safe for us to be ourselves. And if you're a wackadoodles individual who likes to do all kinds of weird and crazy things, great. And if you're not, great. Right. So if you like a suit and a tie, and you like to be clean shaven and, salute everybody as they pop in, great. And if you want to wear a dress with your beard, great. Whatever lights you can do. Because it's not about that. It's about having a community where we can belong, rather than where we have to fit in. And that's one of the great mistakes of our modern society is human beings are driven to belong. We are tribal.
Sure.
We're driven to belong, but we trade that belonging for fitting in. So as you'll remember, Kristall, back in the day, I used to say we trade our authenticity for approval.
Yes.
We trade our authenticity for approval to fit in with the group. But when you fit in, you have to disenfranchise parts of yourself. You have to remove part of yourself in order to fit into that shape. And then what gets lost is really what's most essential. So my job is to bring out what's essential that has been disenfranchised, whether that's in an organization, in a nation, in politics, or in leadership in companies, or in a profoundly powerful leader.
Amazing.
I love that. I love, Kristall and I talk about that. We love supporting the supporters. We love helping the people who are helping people, because then there's that exponential impact.
Exactly.
It sounds like that's what you found, is that if you can help someone at the top of a 3,000 person organization, you're actually helping those 3,000 people, indirectly, because then they can implement some of those systems. I don't know, you have a team that actually goes in and works with them, but that's great. It's such a
but again, it's not going to happen unless that person does the bloody work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so for me, when they work privately with me, they have to pay me a large chunk of change up front. So just be like before, you pay me a chunk of change up front. I can fire you, right? So I don't care. You're going to do the work. And if you don't do the work, I'll fire you and I keep your money. Not because I'm an ass, but because I'm committed to you.
Yeah.
Because I'm absolutely committed, and I'm going to be more committed than that person is, because my identity is not involved in it. Yours is. And that's what's going to make the person go, oh my God, and then you're like, but on the other side of that is some level of magnificence you've never imagined. And the way I describe it all the time is to think of it this way, that shell that kept the little embryo safe will kill the chick.
Yeah.
It has to break out of its shell. And we're all going, oh, well, I'm Humpty Dumpty. Give me some glue. I'll put the shell back together again. We're trying to keep ourselves safe inside of a dysfunctional environment that restricts us from being who we could actually be in our magnificence. So we have to keep breaking through the different levels of shells in order to really spread our wings to breathe fire onto the lies that we've been told by ourselves and by others.
Yeah.
Amazing. It really is such I think a valuable tool that everybody that wants to have any kind of impact in the world, no matter where they want to come from, remembering that coming from that, like you said, that fiercely loyal place where you are committed to the work. Oh, I don't know what that's for. Universe says yes and is beeping at us. That we can really feel that you, the teacher, the coach, that person, whoever's wanting to have that impact, you're embodying that essence of I'm there for you, I'm in it with you, and you need to do the work. And that's how we change the world. And that really is 100% my impression of you, my memory of you from years and years back. I was young, I was early 20s, and I was just figuring out who I wanted to be in the world and what I wanted to do. And so often I quote you to Shine.
Sorry, Shine.
Yeah,
Shine.
sorry, Shine. And there'll be time. Well, I'll be like, well, I learned.
Oh God,
years and
another
years and years
Dovism.
ago. And it really just the way you presented things. Like, I knew that you were trying to speak to me. You were trying to speak to me in a language that I would understand, and that has had a lasting impact on my whole life for 18 years. And even to the point, I was just remembering. I mean, you were. On the day of my dad's suicide, I came to you right after we found his body, and you were my first lifeline, and the impact that you had in getting me through that time was massive. And I know you've supported so many people and so many amazing, huge people in the world, but the impact you've had on my life was just incredible. And I think that's something that everyone can take from just showing up and being authentic the way you always have, Dov, is really the sign of a true leader. And you really
very kind and very generous of you, Kristall. But the truth of the matter is, if we're, I have a very simple philosophy, and that is, if you're a coach or you're a therapist or you're a mentor, you're whatever the hell you call your title, if you're not doing the work, get another job.
Yeah.
Get out, get another job. We don't need any more bullshit in the world, right? You have got to do the work. You can't transform others if you haven't transformed yourself. But I've done the work. I did this and I don't give a shit what you say you've done. It's what shows up in your life. How are you behaving? What are you doing in the world? If you're not behaving in that way that you're teaching, like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see. And unfortunately today, and I know, like I said, I don't mind, I'm going to get a couple of haters or more, is that there's too many people who are claiming the title of coach and have not done their bloody work. And I don't care if you've got a PhD, because I got PhDs I've kicked the ass of too, or if you've been a coach for 20 minutes, I don't care. It's irrelevant. What's relevant is, are you doing the work? Will you call yourself to task? Will you step up? Will you be willing to go? Will you go where you're asking your clients to go? I never asked any client in my entire career to do anything I wouldn't do, whether it was walking on broken glass, lying on a bed of nails, putting arrows in my throat, or weeping and crying and letting it all spill out, or standing there in all of the power and confronting the enemy, whatever that enemy might be. I never ask anybody to do what I'm not willing to do. And if you can't do that, get out of the job, do something else. That's okay. I'm not judging you. Get out, but don't fake it. Go do the work, because when you come back, you can have the impact you say you want to have.
Yeah. The role modeling, that's the piece that you did so strongly, and you continue to do in the world, is walking the talk and showing up. And I think that's something that so many people, and I think it's kind of universal, people feel like, oh, maybe I didn't have the role models from childhood, or, so I can't step up and be what I want to be. And the truth of it is, like you said, you go find those role models, and you find those people that are walking their talk, and then you become that. And you get to be one of those people that is really just showing up for yourself, and then calling humanity.
But what you said there, Kristall, is so really important. I want people to take pause and pay attention to that, because what you just said was that they, whoever they are, may not have had the role model.
Yeah.
And they may have had shitty role models. I did.
Yeah.
My dad was a narcissist. My mother was maybe not bipolar, but pretty damn close. She was nuts, and and I loved her, but she was nuts. And my dad was a narcissist and sociopathic and all kinds of problems. And I didn't have healthy people around me. I had a very abusive stepfather and an abusive grandfather, and all those people. All right. And what's your excuse?
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, you have to find that fire in your belly to say, you know what, I didn't have it, and that's bullshit excuse. I am now responsible for going to find it. So as you know, I traveled the world to go and study with these great spiritual and psychological masters, to be with the best, to find out the best. And so, it's just me, I'm a weirdo, I'm a polymath. I study a really wide range of things, but I always want to find the best of the best who can help me with that area. And most people are too lazy. They want a quick fix, right? They want to read the book and go, oh, I read that book. And I'm like, oh, yeah, well, you should have started a fire with it, right? Like, it's great for fire, but not like, do it. Are you living it? Oh, yeah, I'm living it. Okay, show me the last instance. So it's like, I have no problem with people being coaches and therapists and mentors if they walk the talk. And if they can't walk the talk, get another job, do something else. Even if you say, okay, I'm going to stop that for now. I'm going to continue to work at whatever, Whole Foods or whatever it is, but I'm going to dive in deeply. I'm going to go do the therapy. I'm going to do the workshops. And I'm going to not just go through the motions, but I'm going to do that work. And I'm going to do the deep self-inquiry on myself, so that when I'm reading a book, it's not just words, it's behavior. It's a change in my very identity that I can now serve the world with. That's what it takes. And I think we undermine that so much, so much. I know the work. So let's just give some people some insight here, Kristall. Again, I apologize, Shine, I don't know you in that way, but I watched Kristall go through my workshops. And, I'm kind of famous for these things. Oh, yeah, you can't see them, but I have very pointy shoes, right? I'm kind of well known for my pointy shoes. And I always say my pointy shoes are made pointy so they can fit in your ass, right? And Kristall knows that my shoes fit in her ass lots of times. And that's not out of meanness or cruelty. It's out of, listen, I love you. I care about you. Stop playing small. Step into this magnificence that you can claim. And you went through that, Kristall. You went through that on your own. You went through that in a marriage. You went through that again on your own. You went through that with having children. You went through it on all kinds of levels to confront those demons that we've all got. Yeah, you had them from your mom, and you had them from your dad, and you had them from whoever you had them from, but we've all got them.
Yeah.
No, I got news for you. Nobody gets out of this alive, and nobody gets through it unscathed. In the words of one of my great teachers, 97% of people grow up in a dysfunctional family, and the other 3% are fucking liars.
Yep.
Yeah, we've all got it.
Yeah.
And you can't fall back on that. You got to say, okay, that's it. That was the deck I was handed.
Yeah.
So now what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
It's a tough line. I know this, and it probably is much tougher than you usually hear on this program. But listen, I care deeply, and I'm caring enough to say, you have got to decide that you're worth fighting for. If you don't decide that, it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what Shine or Kristall or anybody in the community says. If you've not made up your mind that you're worth fighting for, if you've not made up your mind that the people you have impact on are worth fighting for, then it's okay. Just don't pretend. Be real. Go into a dark depression. Allow yourself to feel that darkness, because from that you will emerge. There's nothing wrong with depression. There's nothing wrong with going to those dark places, because oftentimes that's where we transform. In the words of Joseph Campbell, we need to step into the cave we fear the most in order to find the treasure we most require. That's where the treasure is in the dark places. It's not in the sunshine.
Yep.
What's been, with all of your experience working with lots of people in the public and then lots of professionals and high-level people who own big companies and have made lots of money, what's been the consistent things that you found to be the most effective? If you could kind of give humanity your top tips on what to do, like what is the work in your words that
in the simplest form, it's embrace identity crisis. The identity you have, the identity you've been walking around with, what you've believed you are, is a lie. Not because you're wrong or bad, but because in order to fit in society, you had to deny, repress parts of yourself. And that's okay. But the problem with it is that those some of your goals, some of your real diamonds of who you are has gotten lost in this disenfranchised way of being.
Mm.
And so you need the identity crisis to crack that open. Right. And so that's actually my clients. These are people who, these are people that other people look at and go, I want to be you when I grow up. And they're like, yeah, and they're smiling, doing all the thing, but it's like, there's something missing.
Mm.
And it's that soulful journey that can't take place without some level of identity crisis.
Mm.
But when you do that work, then everything falls open. Then we get to the emotional source code.
Mm. And you hear that so much, that the people who become really successful, who probably started with business as their main focus, and they haven't gone through a ton of personal growth, they hit the success, which is kind of what they thought was the goal.
Yep.
When they would be happy, and then they're not, and they're just like, oh, I have all this stuff, but I'm still the same, and my marriage is a mess, and my whatever, and nothing. It's like, oh, okay, this isn't what I want either. So that's part of the that's part of the neoliberal doctrine is I'll be happy when. Yeah.
I'll be happy when I make $1 million. I'll be happy when I buy another house. I'll be happy when I buy the wife a new set of tits. I'll be happy when, when I get my penis extended. There's always something, right? But you think about it. I know it's funny, but you think about it. There's always something.
There's always something.
There's going to be an external validation of my significance in the world.
Yeah.
Well, my wife looks better than your wife. Well, my car's bigger than your car. Well, my house is bigger. My husband's younger and hipper than yours. Or, who gives a shit? Right. So, my kids go to private school. Who cares? Like, what's in your soul? Right. So we live in this neoliberal promise that we're going to be happy when we get to the destination. And here's the destination. I'll tell you right now when the destination is. It's the day your heart stops beating. That's the destination. When you're done living, that's the destination. And, we can talk about the metaphysical understanding of what goes on afterwards, but the truth of the matter is it's all made up. We can all talk about, we had visions and, we spoke to a channel and, we took ayahuasca or, whatever. Sure, you can go to that. But the fact of the matter is the only evidence we have is you cease to exist when your heart stops. Now, in the form that you're in, I'll give you that, in the form that you're in. So if you're looking for the outcome, that's the outcome. And here's the news about the outcome. It can happen any moment.
Yeah.
And it can happen while you're watching this, you could drop dead. While you're watching this, a plane could crash through your roof and you'd be done. You don't know. None of us know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you going to live as you or as this facile, wimpy version of who you are? And please, I understand that takes courage.
Yes.
Because it means you will stand out and you'll feel like that whack-a-mole at the playground. It's, people go, boom, you can't do that. You can't say that. Well, you can actually. I know, because I do it every day.
Yeah.
You can do it. And you can live a much more satisfying and soulfully fulfilling life and be deeply, deeply loving, deeply compassionate and caring, but not put up with bullshit. Those two things are not exclusive.
Yes.
They definitely come together.
Love it. You're very TikTokable.
I am? Okay, I didn't know that.
This whole thing, there's going to be clips, because I watched a bunch of your videos.
Okay.
And you have these, you just kind of go and beautiful, you'll have the music behind. It's awesome.
Okay, good. Make sure you let me know where those are.
It helps more people find it.
Right.
Yes. Speaking of how more people can find you, obviously, it's amazing that you're specializing with these people kind of at the top of their field or business, but you are also doing a podcast, which anyone can tune into, of course, at any time. So tell us a little bit about that and what the intention and focus is for that.
So there's two podcasts, actually, not one. I have two. One of them is called Leadership and Loyalty. Leadership and Loyalty is the podcast that is aimed at leaders, but it starts with self-leadership. So there's lots of value in it for people who are not in the corporate world. And like, for instance, on Monday, I interviewed a neuroscientist who's got a PhD in linguistics, neuroscience, and psychology. in 3 areas. And we were talking about it in the context of leadership, but she was also on my other show, which is called Curiosity Bites. You can find that. And where we went into much wider range. We talked about it in the range of politics. We talked about it in the range of romance and love and bringing up kids. So, you know, I have the leadership and loyalty is for leaders mostly. Curiosity Bites, I decided I want to have. My wife thought I was insane. When I said that in past tense, that was foolish. My wife thinks I'm insane because I created Curiosity Bites. I did it for me because, as I said, I'm a polymath. So I study metaphysical study, I study psychology, quantum physics, and a bunch of other things we don't need to go into, but the neurosciences and politics and a bunch of other things. And I wanted to have a show where I could go into those areas that I'm quite knowledgeable about and have great conversations. So genetic engineering on some of them, we've talked about futurists, we've talked about crypto and what that really is and what is happening with certain governments. I just recently wrote a piece about 6 weeks ago that I put on LinkedIn that showed the connection between the protests in Iran for the young lady who was murdered last year by the morality police, and showed the connection between that and the war in the Ukraine and how that ties to China, Brazil, and India and America's seat at the table of power. So that's an example of pulling in those polymathic subjects, talking about the military industrial complex and all those kinds of things. And I don't do any conspiracy shit. It's everything super researched for all of it. So, you know, that was why. So some of my really big fans from Leadership and Loyalty went over to Curiosity Bites and like, oh my God, this goes really deep with subjects that I couldn't go as deep on, but stayed in the framework of leadership on the other show. And I love doing them. I love doing them because it gives me my community. You know, so we talked about community at the beginning. I get to have this wonderful community of amazing human beings from around the world who I can add to and who can add to me. And that's such a gift.
Beautiful. Taking conversations further than they've been taken before. I love it.
Yeah. Like I said, the neuroscientist, and again, this is not bragging. This is just like how it was. The neuroscientist. So when she was on the Curiosity Bites show, that's recorded in half-an-hour blocks for 2 hours. And in between the blocks, like in between the 30 minutes, it's just so people can get a break, right? In there, we take about 2 minutes in the recording, 2-3 minutes, and we just chat back and forwards a little bit. One of them was 1 hour and 20 minutes, one of the breaks. And she said to me, do you know how many, she said, I'm a neuroscientist. I'm a scientist. She goes, do you know how many neuroscience shows I've been on? And I said, probably a lot. And she goes, oh yeah, a lot. She goes, this is the first one I've been on where I've learned neuroscience.
Aww.
And I'm no neuroscientist officially. Right. Yeah. But I took her into areas that she had not thought about in the context of tying one thing to another. And she's like, wow, I never thought about that. And some of that you learned in my basic programs.
Yes.
Right. When we talked about how DNA follows light.
I was just going to say that one. And I know you were actually one of the first people to diagnose, and I use that term very loosely, but to really identify that dyslexia is a thing for me. So I really loved, you were always so visual with your slides and in your workshops, and the DNA being uptight and the light following the DNA were some of the things that have stuck with me. I still preach that to other people. I talk to them about the DNA. I talk to my kids about that, how actually when they're stressed, they contract.
DNA tightens up. Yeah.
It's one of those things. And that I love that this is the work that you're doing. I can really see where one of the things I loved so much about your workshops were that even though you had a specific topic, like you said, you did a wealth one and a relationships one and a general well-being one, and all of them covered so many more topics than just that one, umbrella, and really tied in all these pieces that were so, it was kind of like you came for one thing and you got all the rest of it kind of in sideways. And it really just making those connections. And I love that. I feel like you're one of those people who really connects the dots and makes those connections of information. And of course, we need specialists who dive in on one subject for their whole life and they nerd out on it. And I always really appreciate it. I think my dyslexic ADHD brain really appreciate how you do a bit of this and a bit of that and then tie it together. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense to me in the world.
Right.
So
and that's the advantage you have of what Shine and you have created with this community, is that you're bringing in those different facets so that people can get that. That's important. They need to know that there is a quote store, a community they can go to where they can get those things, and whether it's, you know, just some free content to catalyze some kind of shift inside of them, or whether it's a deep dive into something, it's all there. And that's what's the adventure. That's why it's so great that you're doing this.
Oh, thank you.
I was watching the TikTok CEO on the TED stage, the video of that, and he was talking about the way that the TikTok algorithm works and how it's different than Facebook, Instagram, etc. And what he said is the main way it works is they categorize the video using AI. It's like, oh, that's a horse, that's a this, whatever. They can kind of get a sense of it just with the AI of knowing what the video is about. And then if someone likes that video, then on their then the AI tracks and says, okay, this person is liking horses and this and that and the other.
Yes.
And then if they then like another video, it's tracking all that. So it's got this sort of map of like, this person likes a lot of this and a little bit of this and a lot of that. And if they then see that someone else has a similar map and that someone else really loves horses, but they like a different video, then they're going to recommend that other video to that other person. And it was funny because before I even learned about that, we've been thinking about integrating that as a way to like connect people, say, to a great massage. So if two people have the same massage and don't know each other and they really love it and they rate it 5 stars, and then one of them goes to another masseuse, rates that a 5-star, then the other one might like that. And so that was an interesting thing that I learned there. And then I was, with what you're saying, it'd be interesting, like as we build out our social, because we have a social platform, just the very beginnings of one. But as we build our algorithm, it'll be interesting to see how we can connect the dots and have, you know, content on neuroscience and then a video that talks about DNA or different like pieces. So got my brain moving.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting about that, Shine, is one of my great joys in life is to fuck with the algorithm. I do. So I will click on Breitbart. I'll click on Fox. I click on CNN. I click on BBC, Al Jazeera, all the different things. And I do it on purpose, and I'll let it run because I want the algorithm not to send me more of the same. I want different, because this is one of the greatest mistakes we've made, is a thing we used to say a lot, which is surround yourself with like-minded people. Oh my God, please don't do that.
Yes.
You will just be another bubble-headed idiot who's saying the same things as everybody else, right? You got to surround yourself with people who don't agree with you so that you can learn. And that's what matters, is getting around people who don't think the same way as you are, so you can have compassion and you can learn and you can expand instead of just validating your bullshit. You go, okay, I've never thought about that. Let me look deeper. So I watch Fox and I watch Al Jazeera and I watch Breitbart, and I'm like, yeah, I don't disagree with everything they're saying.
Yeah.
And that's important, because if I'm going, oh, you know, Donald Trump is this and this and this, and there's nothing good, then okay, well, what am I going to do? Surround myself with people who think Donald Trump's an ass. Now, I personally think he's an ass, but that's beside the point. Yeah. At the same time, I need to understand where all those people are coming from, because we want to make people who think differently than us bad or wrong.
Yeah.
So I've got a very, very good friend who's a Trumpian up the creek. I mean, like, he's fully Trumpian, right? And I love him to bits. Like, he's a great guy. We just don't agree on that, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't immediately wipe him out off my life. And that's part of where we've got the challenges. We're not growing because well, I'm a Christian, I only speak to Christians. Then you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm a Jew and I only speak to Jews. Then you're an idiot. Well, I'm a Republican, I only speak to Republicans. Then you're an idiot.
Yeah. Like,
let's start coming together. I'm part of a global organization called Starts With Us. You may have heard of. And Starts With Us is about how we need to get away from this bipartisan mentality and
that's
all come together. It starts with us coming together and seeing what we've got in common.
Yeah.
Wow.
What we've got in common. 78% of the people in the United States who were surveyed said they were sick of this bipartisan shit. 78%.
Yeah.
So starts with us, sent 78 people dressed as Lincoln into Times Square.
Oh, cool.
And guess who they met?
Who?
They met the naked cowboy. The cowboy is a Trumpian.
Okay.
And they had a conversation with him. And guess what they found? He agreed with more than half of what they were talking about.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's a full-blown, like, January
Yeah.
the 6th Trumpian.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
like, what do we need to understand about people
Mhm.
rather than writing them off? Like,
Yeah.
and so the mentality is, and it's right here above my head, stay curious. That's my religion, curiosity.
Beautiful.
So we have to be curious about each other
Yes.
rather than deciding who somebody is. Let's get curious about them. Let's find out, who are you? Like, beyond that, okay, you'd vote Trump or you vote Biden. Beyond that, who are you?
Yeah.
What stokes your fire? What makes you go? What is it that you would stand on a hill and fight for? What is it that you would give your own life for?
Yeah.
Like, these are the more important questions than who you voted for. I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a video of Trump that I just couldn't believe he said this. And I was like, that's insane that he would say this, like, actually. And I was like, he couldn't have just said that. So I like went to the full video because I saw this clip on some whatever.
Yep.
So I went to the full video and it was so out of context.
Exactly.
So wrong. Like, it was so not what he was saying. And I
Yeah.
was like, this is terrible. Like, they're deliberately like slanting, they're deliberately trying to do stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's for two reasons. It's one, it's to try and get their party to win. And two, it's
clickbait, man.
It's
money.
to get clicks, to get advertisers.
Yeah, it's
I
money.
think it's both. It's ideology and it's financial. And that's why we're like, the way that we're building Unite is no ads, and it's going to be a revenue model. So similar to how WeChat does it in China, where there's a lot of transactions, kind of like what Elon's talking about with Twitter, making it like an everything app. And so we're building in the marketplace to the social platform so that there can be a revenue model that's based on actually helping people find the things that they really want, that'll help them ideally in their well-being to start. That's our main focus. But
That's beautiful.
yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how to get out of that, because it feels toxic. It feels so terrible. And you've seen like I've just seen the Canadian politics. Everyone's just yelling at each other. It's like, come on, man.
We're Canadians. Come on,
Like,
we're nice people.
But like how can politics? Everyone's on the defensive and attacking each other and just trying to make the other person look bad. It just feels like no wonder the world, like some of the things are happening. How do you see a way out of that? What do you?
Well, I see the way out of it in that it's because I know human beings. I think it's got to get worse before it gets better. And what I mean by that is we've got to get to a place of going, I'm not willing to put up with this anymore.
Yeah.
People don't change until it becomes too painful.
Yeah.
To stay the same.
I thought that's what Trump was, but apparently not.
Well, and Trump was, and you still have to look at though that the behind Trump is still, the Fox machine was still running at that, and even they've now backed away.
Yeah.
But that bipartisanship is so massively profitable. It's like starts with us is never going to be as popular as Fox, right? Because it's not as clickable. And so we have to do things that make it clickable. And so part of that is like, when I'm in starts with us meetings with the directors, and I'm part of the director team, I'm in with that. And they're like, ooh, you're a bit controversial. And I'm like, of course I am. And they go, well, you seem like you're a radical centrist. And I go, I am, because this is what we need to do. We need to make a bloody stand and stop being wishy-washy, because people are not going to click on wishy-washy. They're not going to do that. They need to make a stand. Whether you like or dislike Jordan Peterson, you have an opinion about him because he's clickable. He has an opinion. And it's like, okay. Now, at the same time, so does Gabor Mate, but in a completely different style.
Yeah.
Now, I think that Jordan Peterson is a brilliant mind. I love Gabor Mate. I can do both. And I'm good to do both. I don't have to choose one.
Yeah.
Both are clickable to me for different reasons.
Mm.
And I think that this is what we've got to get, is like understanding that it's not a one size fits all or a two size fits all. It's like the multiple, let's have people go to the banquet of knowledge, go to the banquet of wisdom, and take what they want.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I want some of this. I want spirituality, but I don't want religion. I
Yeah.
want spirituality, but I don't want any woo-woo crap, right? I don't want any crystals up my bum or I don't want any of that, right? But I want spirituality, right? I want Christianity, but I don't want any evangelical craziness, right? I want Judaism, but I don't want any Hasidic stuff, whatever it is, or I want those things. That's fine.
Yeah.
But letting people have that banquet of saying, you don't have to fill up on one thing. You can choose what you like and what works for you. But our algorithm will encourage you to go taste the things you wouldn't have. And it's an analogy I use in the workshops when I'm working with corporate teams. And I say, I want you to put on a piece of paper one thing you have never tasted, but you've decided is disgusting. You've never tasted it.
Yeah.
So they put, sea urchin or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And I go, next 7 days, you have to go eat that.
Wow.
You have to go eat it.
Yeah.
And you have to go eat it, but you have to go eat it with an open mind. And they go, well, how do I do that? I go, you can't look at it. So first thing is blindfold yourself, because we taste a lot with our eyes, right?
Wow.
So just get somebody to blindfold you and taste it. So they got a blindfold. You're not going to just give you that. They're going to give you something else and something else. And somewhere in 5 things, they're going to give you one of those things. And each one of the things you put in your mouth, you're going to have to describe. And here's what we find. Some of the things they like, they don't like. They go, it's got a horrible consistency. That's avocado. You said you love avocado. Oh, is it? Yeah. Because we've got these pre-frames in our brain about food, but about everything.
Yes.
We've got a pre-frame of what Donald Trump tastes like. We've got a pre-frame of what Joe Biden tastes like. We've got a pre-frame of what Justin is like. But those are all pre-frames. They're not the truth. They're a sampling of something that we've decided based on my mom said, my dad said, the truck driver said, the politician said, the media said, nothing to do with my reality.
Yes.
That's why I said I love driving the algorithms mad. Right? Because if your algorithm is designed to say, I know you like this and you like this and you like this, but we'd like you to try that. Right? And we want you to try it. And if you go through that video that's 3 minutes and at the end of it, you don't find anything in it that you can agree with, you get to respond to us and say, I disagreed with every single point. Here's the 9 points and I disagreed with every. Okay, cool. We won't send you more. But I agreed with 3 of the 9. Okay, is it okay if we send you a little more of that on occasion? Yeah, sure, because we want to broaden you. That's a better algorithm.
Yes.
Are you talking about something that you're building or just
that? Talking about what I'm asking you to build.
Okay, got it. I love it.
I love it.
Don't take it as instruction or anything.
Yeah, right. I love it.
No, that's really such a so helpful. I've got all the ideas worrying. It started when you were saying about segregation, of course, and being just with the people who are like us. And I feel like it starts in school with segregating by age. And you're saying these are your peers that you are going to spend most of your time with and learn most of what you learn. And they are exactly, if not worse off than you are. So the only way for you to feel community, like we talked about, that all of us humans want community, the only way to feel that is either be the leader of that pack, which is this challenging place to be in. There can only be a few leaders, or you conform. And that's it. And your role models are normally the ones that are having the hardest time at home, the worst, they're acting out the most because they're whatever's going on. And everyone else either has to conform and follow or feels like a complete weirdo on the side and doesn't belong. And I feel like that's a big part of where a lot of this kind of starts, of needing to be around people like ourselves. And then I found, not going to school myself, and Cara and I, when we were young, Dov knows my kid's dad and met us both when we were very young, first got together. And I always felt like I wanted community. And because I feel like I didn't go to school and I didn't work a 9-to-5 job, that's where everyone met their friends. And that was the only way that there was community. So we worked really hard. That's part of why I volunteered with you. I loved supporting you. And it was like an opportunity for me to have a community and to connect with people. And I was almost always the youngest volunteer, almost very different than most of the other people. And I felt community because we were all there, common shared values.
To serve. Everybody was there at every level to serve. And that's what it's about.
And we were just showing up together. And I feel like that for me, all those people and you became such role models. And when we're really looking at this, who are the role models that we A, started with in school, and then B, now surround ourselves with, if it's just the people in your work or the people. And I remember you really kind of stressing that for all of us to really check in on who are we surrounding ourselves with. And then the other piece that I always, still when I go out to a party, especially when I'm feeling a little heavy and not really feeling super social, I remember you saying, maybe I'll meet my next best friend there. And
Very good. I'm glad you remembered that.
I still, that for me was a really, because there's times when I'm like, oh, fuck, like I really just, and then I'm like, but being open to the possibility, and I'll go in and, oh, this isn't really my crowd, or these aren't really my people. And I remember what you said about being open to the possibility of something new. And I think that piece, when so many of us are carrying pain around like a mantle, like you said, excuses, I didn't have role models, I had a shitty upbringing, whatever the story is, when we're carrying those excuses, it's really hard to be open to possibilities because you feel like you've got your algorithm pre-organized, it's all preset. And I love that. And we know that we can have these spiritual emergencies, these mental breakdowns, these big things to break down, to break through. And I feel like it's also, we don't have to wait for those, like, you know, car accidents or cancer. We can decide I'm going to do the work before that even happens. And that's the piece that I keep getting and keep up leveling, and I don't need to go all the way. I can, the first sign of a headache, I can stop and check in on my body instead of waiting till I get sick or break my toe like I did last year. And I can check in and like, what's the relationship I'm having with my body and with my preset algorithm for what is acceptable, what has worked, because I've never broken anything in my life. I've never had any body challenges up until I'm almost 39 years old. I've never broken anything. I've like, so what algorithm am I running that this is coming up? And I feel like that's the piece that we're so excited with Unite. And I'm so grateful with the work that you're doing in the world, that yes, we all know that we can have that big crash and we can grow through that. And we get to decide how big we want that crash to be, and if we even want to crash or if we want to grow before that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you remember from the workshops, you know, I fell off a mountain, for those who don't know. In 1990, I fell 120 feet while free climbing. So I got smashed to pieces. Wow. And my quote has always been the same, which is everybody falls.
Yeah.
And most people grab the Band-Aids and the super glue and they try to put themselves back together again.
Yeah.
And I tried to do that too initially, and then realized Humpty Dumpty doesn't come back together. It's not supposed to come back together. You're supposed to spill. You're supposed to discover who you are inside of that shell. And then I would say to people, and you don't literally have to fall off a mountain. You can have a divorce or a bankruptcy or the loss of a loved one or diagnoses or whatever it might be, or you can twist your ankle.
Yeah.
It's completely up to you.
Yeah.
You can pay attention, but most of us don't pay attention. So again, my language, you know, the soul whispers to us.
Yeah.
And it whispers a lot. And if we ignore it, eventually it will speak to us.
Yeah.
And if we don't listen, it'll shout at us. And if we don't listen when it shouts at us, it'll throw us off a mountain.
Yeah.
For those of us who are slow learners, not thinking about anybody in particular. Right.
Yeah.
Me too,
By the
sometimes.
way, Shine, I know you're looking in disbelief at the fall. That was my fourth fall. It wasn't my first, it was my fourth. So slow learner.
That's hilarious.
I fell off Bluff Knoll in Western Australia, which my granddaughter, who is now 20, took a recent picture on Bluff Knoll. And
Mm.
when you're on the top of Bluff Knoll, it looks like you're standing in the clouds.
Wow.
This
Beautiful.
gorgeous photograph. And it's exactly where I felt.
Wow.
That
There's
was
a
the
full
first of
circle.
four.
Full
Yeah,
circle
Jesus.
moment. That's really, I had a conversation recently with exactly somebody who was really good. What was that word you used for not challenging my beliefs? They were not in my algorithm at all, and they were really coming at me with their opinions, which were very contrary to my own, and they were really saying very anti that humans need pain to grow, and they're saying that's an old very archaic thought process, and until we let go of that practice, we are never going to be able to evolve or grow. And I was kind of really coming at him from the perspective of, sure, but I think we come here for contrast. We want that ride. And if we just wanted the happy enlightenment piece, we would have stayed non-physical, because I believe that's what it is. And here is for the ride and the contrast and the growth and the creation and the exploration. And it was a really funny conversation, because he was 100% one of those people that he would have checked, I disagree with every statement on this conversation, and nothing I said would get through to him. But what I enjoyed about it was the reflection of helping me feel even stronger in my feelings on that subject. And I think that's something, like you were saying, if we're all whitewashed in the same box, in the same religion, in the same community, in the same culture, we're never really fighting for our beliefs. We're never really getting them solid in ourselves, because we have nothing challenging them. And I
But
think
you need to have them challenged, but you need to go further. I'm going to push back a little bit on you, Kristall, if that's okay. And then when that guy was coming at you, you needed to ask yourself, where is he right? And how can I show him that I can see he's right? Because he is right. Human beings are driven by pain. This is a fact. It's biological. It's at a neurological level. It's a biological level. We are driven by pain. And because, looking at it from a spiritual point of view, yes, that we need this contrast. Yes. And the pain is a great barometer for change. Yes. So you're both absolutely right. Nobody's absolutely wrong. It doesn't exist. And that's what we all need to do, is to look at where is the middle ground. So I can get embedded in mine, but with this open, curious perspective of yours too.
Yeah, exactly. That was really where I was coming from, is I agreed with him on that point. The point I was disagreeing on him was that he said we have to basically come at it. We have to, anytime we try and grow from our pain, we're wrong. And that was the piece. And that was the piece where I was like, oh, okay, you go do you, and I'll see you in a few years and see how you feel about that.
Absolutely.
That was the piece that, but it really kind of was such a healthy pushback for me. And I feel like, I think that is part of what I love about social media and the depth of information that we have access to in the internet, that we can pick and choose. But I think we can also turn stuff off that we disagree with. And I think there is such a piece of, when we come together in community, to get to actually hear other people's sides and not be able to click off and really grow through.
Whether you agree with Elon Musk or not, the principle of having Twitter be a town hall that is not censored is bloody great, right? Are there some wacky doodles on there? Sure there are. Absolutely. But that's my framework. Right? There's some real whack jobs on there. Okay. But if it's a town square, that's how it works. If you go to London and you go to Hyde Park on a Sunday morning, people this is where the term comes from, soapboxing, because in Hyde Park, you stand on a wooden soapbox. That's where it comes from. So you stand on a wooden soapbox and you preach to the crowd, right? About whatever you think. And that goes back to ancient Babylon, right? Ancient Greece, ancient Babylon, they did that. And that's what Twitter was meant to be. But what it's become, and what a lot of social media has become, is if you say a word, we're going to slap you and ban you, right? So do I like what neo-Nazis say? Absolutely not. Do I agree with any of it? Gonna struggle to find anything. I probably could find something if I look, but it's going to be difficult. Do I think they should be banned? No. No. Noam Chomsky, 30 years ago, 35 years ago, went and stood in court and gave witness for a neo-Nazi to speak again, who was speaking, saying in denial of the Holocaust. Noam Chomsky lost many members of his family in the Holocaust. And he stood in court and said, I will stand for this man's rights to speak his truth.
Yeah.
Even if I completely disagree with it.
Yeah.
That's free speech. That's what we need more of. That's what the newer algorithms should need to be about. And this is my hope for AI.
Yeah.
Like, so a lot of people are very nervous about AI, and I just did a presentation on it, and I said, listen, we all, whether you're aware of it or not aware of it, you're in denial of it or truth, at some level, we all know the education system is fucked, right? It's not giving anybody anything they really need at all. But let's say that I say, I want a degree in X, Y, and Z. And part of that is that I need to learn geography, but I'm not interested in geography, but I'm really interested in rugby, or I'm really interested in plants. AI can teach me geography via plants, or via rugby, or via whatever it is. And that's beautiful. So we're going to be getting to a place where we can say, listen, I want to be polymathic in my approach. I want to approach it from different ways. I want to understand this from a far right and a far left and a deeply central. And it can bring you that stuff rather than you spending 3 months trying to balance out. It can do that in 30 seconds. And that's beautiful. So this is what I'm excited about AI about. And I've just interviewed some very famous futurists, and there's a lot of people who are very, very nervous about it, including Musk and some others who are very nervous about it. But I'm very optimistic about it. Certainly, I think it has some very serious considerations and it needs some boundaries. But it could be an enormous gift to us if we do it right.
Yeah, there's a new feature on Twitter called community notes, I think, where if someone shares something, then someone can flag it, and instead of having it removed, there's a note underneath that says, this is why I'm writing this note, but in order for that note to go live, there has to be more than one person who agrees on it. So, and if someone goes on and disagrees, then it's sort of paused, and like there has to be a consensus of whatever's on there. It's like it reflects the truth of more than one person. I think that's how it works. And I can see AI eventually coming into that and go, if a video of Trump goes on of him saying something crazy, then the AI could actually read, the full video and say, this context is incorrect because this and this. Here's the full video, here's what it was really saying, and to sort of lower that reach of that video automatically because it's not accurately reflecting what he was trying to say. And I think it's going to be quite good, like quite delightful.
I think it can be
amazing.
Could be magnificent.
Yeah.
But, you just said something that I think is really important for people to grasp. When we're talking about evolving, we're talking about becoming better human beings as a generality, right? So we have to look at something that, I am old enough that I was around before the internet. I was an adult before the internet. And so I remember when the internet came out and I remember being around a lot of my friends who are now gone on to be very, very wealthy people in the internet world. Okay. They got on it. I didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
And the chant was content is king. Content is king. You probably even heard it, even though you're much younger than me. Content is king. Content is not king. Content is now ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? What's king is context. And that's what we've lost. We've lost it in social media and we've lost it in life. We don't look at the context. If I see some woman, you remember this example I gave, or you might remember it, Kristall, from the workshops. And I said, let's imagine you're walking down Robson Street in Vancouver and you turn onto Robson Street from Thurlow. And as you turn on, a woman is got a hold of her kid by the scruff of the neck and she's screaming at this kid. What do you do? What do you think? Well, you think this is an abusive parent. What the hell is she doing? Right. And you say, back off. Well, how do you know that kid didn't just walk out into heavy traffic and that mother pulled him back and saved his life? You don't know that because you don't have the fucking context. So you're judging on the content, not the context. And we need to look at the context because everything has a context. And so a little short video of Biden shaking hands with nothing or falling upstairs is funny. That's great. But so what? Another one of Trump saying something ridiculous. That's funny. So what? But where's the context? Where's the context? Every fight you're having with your partner, every fight you're having with your mother, your father, your sister, your brother, your friends, what's the bloody context? Not the content. What's the context? Let's look at what the context is. If we can examine the context, suddenly we go, oh, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
In that context, I fully agree with you. Yeah, you probably should drag your kid by the scruff of the neck and scream at them so that they really learn that this is serious. You could have died, kid. Okay. Will that shock the shit out of them? Yes. Will it change their nervous system? Yes. Will that make them more aware of the road? Yes. Am I going to regret screaming at them? Probably, but I'm still okay with the fact that I did it.
Yeah.
Right. Context is everything. And we're lacking context online and we're lacking context in our lives. We go, oh, this wacky doodle over here, Kristall's here and Smokey there and a big scarf and, and then you sit down with a person like, whatever. Right. One of my friends was a writer for a book you might be familiar with called What the Bleep. Right. And so I got to know her very well. And the first time I saw her was in the movie. And I remember thinking, wow, this is a new age dingling. I had fully judgment. Don't get me wrong. I'm as judgmental as anybody else. I thought this one was a full, like she looked like a psychic dingling. Right. I was like, yeah, okay. I got to know her, and how I got to know her was I met her in Mexico. We were on holiday in the same place. Her husband and me and Rem were in the same place. And she walked past me and I went, Candace. And she went, yes. And I said, oh, I'm Dov Baron. And we started talking. We hung out the whole week. We had such amazing conversations about neuroscience and neurobiology and neurochemical cocktails and all kinds of amazing things. She just had a look and I took the look without the context.
Yes.
So I said, oh, I'm judging you on the fact that you're wearing this tie-dyed outfit. That's my shit. Nothing to do with you. And she was an amazing woman. I was really sad when she died. She made amazing strides in science. What an amazing human being. She was the greatest influence on one of my friends who now runs the #1 emotional intelligence company in the world.
Wow.
Global training company. And she was his direct guide, right? But I'm judging without context. Oh, you're wearing tie-dye, so I don't like you. You got tattoos on your face, so you're obviously an idiot. No, not true. You're going to have those judgments. So what I'm trying to tell you is not that don't have the judgments, because we all this new age stuff. Like, oh, you shouldn't be judgmental. Shut up. Everybody's judgmental. It's part of the human condition. Yeah. If you don't judge, you'll walk out into the street and get hit by a bus. You have to judge whether it's safe to do that. Judgment is part of our psyche. It keeps us alive, but you don't have to follow the judgment. You can question the judgment. You can say, well, I'm judging this person because they have a tattoo on their face. Well, what's the context for that judgment? Well, I would never have one. Well, I'm not him, am I? Yeah. No. Okay. Well, then it's fine. Right. I'm judging this person because, they've still got an appendage downstairs, but they're wearing a bra. Right. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't do that, but that's my context, not yours. Tell me about your context. Let's be inquiring. Let's be deeply curious about other people's context. It doesn't have to be right, but it can be right for them. And that way we can get out of this automatic judgment, move instead to let me see what's there that I don't see. What have you decided? You looked at this screen and you went, oh, here's an old fart with gray beard and gray hair. And, he probably doesn't know, or he's probably an old kook or whatever it is. You have no idea where I've been or what I've done, but you judge it. And I understand that. It's okay. I'm not upset with you for judging it. I get that. But that's not who I am. It's your judgment of who I am. Get curious and you'll find out something else altogether. That's what we've all need to do. when I spoke at the UN in 2015 with Tony, you remember Tony Mack?
Yep.
I went and spoke there with Tony Mack, and we spoke about the rise of the extreme right in America. And we were invited there because Tony Mack was the head of WAR, White Aryan Race. He was a neo-Nazi.
Wow.
Who credits me with de-radicalizing him. I'm a Jew by birth. And when he sat in my office and he was swallowing golf balls, having an awful time trying to tell me why he was there, and eventually he told me, and he's looking down at the carpet in shame, and as he's telling me, and he looks up and I'm smiling, and he goes, he's mad. Like, what are you smiling at? What are you laughing at? And I said, you do know I'm a Jew, right? And he goes, oh, fucking irony. Because there's a context there. So when we were in the UN and we were speaking, and one of the things, we were in a panel, and the person who was running the panel, she was from CNN, a Muslim lady, and she said, how could you advocate for a man who was advocating for the annihilation of your race? I said, because you are taking it in the context of him being a neo-Nazi. That's not the context I saw him in. And she said, well, what context did you see him in? I said, I live my life by a philosophy. I don't live in the world. I live in the mirror. Everybody's reflecting some part of me back. And she goes, you were a neo-Nazi? I said, no. But he was a highly intelligent, highly articulate, bright young man who needed to have an expression. I could have gone down that road. I needed that too. I took a different path than him. So what? The context is the same. Just where he got to was a different result. And then he discovered that's not who he is. That's where he fit in. It's not where he belongs. And now he travels the world speaking in synagogues and Holocaust museums and de-radicalizing the far right. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But he couldn't have done that without going down that other road.
Yes.
And so we got to speak at a synagogue together here in Vancouver, which was the first place of his where he behaved in a radical manner, wrote a swastika on the synagogue door. And when we went to speak there, he was terrified. He said, I've spoken at this place, I've been in Israel, and blah, blah, blah. I've been around the world. And he goes, this is the first place I'm really nervous. And they were wonderful. They stood up, they gave him a standing ovation, they applauded him, they thanked him. You know, how amazing, because they understood the behavior was not the person. That was that's not the context of the soul. That's the context of the conditioning.
I was just talking to someone today about just all the amazing things in religions. There's so much like beautiful wisdom and words, so much beautiful community. There's so much that's just so good. I was like, why? Like, it's just crazy. Like it adds so much to people's lives. And I've never been religious, but I went to a church in a small town that I was staying in for a bit, and it was a friend. It was a community. It was where I met people. It was musical. There was so many nice things, and yeah.
But again, we look at religion through a filter.
Sure.
Right, and we're barking religious stuff out at people through a filter, but most people have never studied it. I can outquote almost any Christian with the Bible because I studied it. I studied Gnostic and Coptic Christianity. I can quote Old Testament too because I studied Kabbalah and with the Jews. Okay, so what? That's like quoting to me some shit from Eckhart Tolle or whatever, and nothing against Eckhart Tolle, but just you're quoting something. You have no context inside of your own soul for this thing. Are you doing the thing? So what happens is the religions are beautiful. I studied Gnostic and Coptic Christianity, Kabbalah, Vedanta, which is Hindu philosophy, Buddhism, the Tao, and a bunch of New Age religions. Studied all those, lived with monks, lived with rabbis, lived with priests, did all those things. In my 20s, I did all that from my late teens to my 20s, was in all of that. And what I can tell you is every one of those religions is beautiful in their philosophy.
Yes.
And terrible in their application. Because it's a bunch of rules and everybody else has got to be wrong. No. Let's go back. I never read anywhere in the New Testament about Jesus saying, you're an abomination because you're gay.
Yeah.
He never said that. Yet radical Christians will say that that's against God. Well, hold on a second. And they say, well, it's in the Bible. No, it's not in your Bible. It's in the Old Testament. It's in the Old Testament. It's in Deuteronomy, where it says it is an abomination for a man to lie with another man. It says that. You're absolutely right. But it also says that I've got to stone you. And they go, why? I say, because you're wearing mixed fabrics. And it also says that's not okay.
Yeah.
Because you should only wear one fabric. So if you're wearing cotton, that's okay. But if you're wearing cotton and polyester, well, I'm sorry, I just got to stone you. So Jesus said, follow the New Testament. And if you're claiming to be a Christian, then follow the New Testament. If you're not, shut up. You can't reference and cherry pick. That's ludicrous. Right? Jesus also wasn't in favor of slaves, but the Old Testament was. Old Testament was very pro-slaves. Jesus wasn't. Can't claim to be a Christian and have slaves. Sorry, that doesn't wash. So we've got things out of context again. We cherry pick rather than saying, what is the nugget? What is the delicious, beautiful morsel that's in there? And guess what it is? It's love.
Yeah.
It's love. It's like, let's love each other. Let's love ourselves. Let's see ourselves as this manifestation of a creative force that one can call God or Buddha or Fred. It doesn't matter. Right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't give a shit. In my opinion, it's not the truth. My opinion is very simple. God loves me, you, Adolf Hitler, Donald Trump equally.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't understand its love. So how can it understand anything but love? So it just loves us all. And it loves us so much, it'll let us do shitty things. Great. Fantastic. That's what's called free will. All right, good.
Yeah.
Good. And you can have that experience and you can validate it and you can go along with it. And maybe you get to evaluate it when you're no longer with your heart beating and you get to look back and go, I did a shitty job or I did a great job. And maybe you just worm food.
There was a beautiful Abraham Hicks session where they talked about the worst things that people can do and what effect that has on them, like after they die. And so what I say she because it's a woman that
I remember
that's channeling, but what they said is that there's a lot of people who commit crazy crimes like rape, murder, whatever, and die, and then are reborn and are actually a lot of the people that people look up to, because in the afterlife, the momentum and the desire to then do good, to not make up for it, but to like, they're like, oh, that was really bad. What is it like? I want to do really good, and that it can actually be it can be like an accelerant to someone's soul path and actually allow them to come in to a very specific body with a specific set of circumstances that are conducive to creating a big impact, to having a big, and I thought that was really interesting. And it, after watching that whole session, it was like a day, hour and a half, 2 hour session. It really set because I was working out like Hitler, okay, how, child molesters and rapists and killers, and like how do you rectify, like how do you like make sense of that and be okay with that? And it was really great. It was just saying that it's all emotional scale, and that if someone's in despair and powerlessness, then revenge or anger or acts of violence feel better. That's why they do it. It's better not to take action if you can go up the emotional scale, to actually feel better, but without taking action, that's much better.
Well, the thing I would just like to say to that is, first of all, none of us actually know what happens after we're dead, because nobody's, I've been there 5 times. I died 5 times, and I can't verify anything you just said. So,
really? You died?
Yeah, 5 times.
No.
5 times, yeah.
That's wild.
So, but I'm not, at the same time, I can't dismiss it either.
Yeah, of course.
Because nobody actually knows. And anybody who says they know is bullshit. Sorry, that's my opinion. Sure. We don't actually know.
Yeah.
Right. But here's what I know. We're all looking to feel better.
Mhm.
I just want you to get that for a minute. As you watch this or listen to this, I want you to remember the person in front of you who is being an ass or who did horrible things
Yeah.
is simply trying to feel better.
Yeah.
About what? I don't know. You probably don't know. In fact, they may not know.
Yeah.
But they're trying to feel better. Everybody's trying to ease their pain. And some of them are doing it at church. And some of them are doing it in molestation. And some of them are doing it in violence. And some of them are doing it in heroin. And some of them are doing it by being workaholic. There's all kinds of ways that we try to ease our pain.
Yeah.
And until we confront that pain, we will keep behaving in ways that try to ease the pain. It doesn't work. Well, it's not true. It does work, but in the short term. It doesn't work in the long term.
Yes.
And if I can look at people from that level, rather than, oh, well, when they die, they're going to come back and be a good person. I know, no, I'm not waiting around for that. Sorry. I'm not waiting for Donald Trump to come back and be Mother Teresa. No, I can see the behavior, but I can also understand that this is a man who is in enormous amounts of pain that he doesn't know he's in.
Yes.
It's beyond his consciousness. I can see it in his emotional source code.
Yeah.
I've laid out his emotional source code. I laid out the emotional source code of Vladimir Putin. I wrote it as a report and made it available to the world. It's on my website. Go to dovbaron.com, a red pop-up will come, put your email in, and you can have the report on Vladimir Putin's emotional source code. And you get to see, yes, these behaviors are horrible, but let's give it the context of his emotional source code. And you go, oh, okay, now I get it. Instead of everybody in black or white, it's like, no, everybody's in pain.
Yeah.
That person who's always nice to you and always sweet and always kind, they're in pain.
Mhm.
They're hiding that pain by being sweet, nice, and kind,
Mhm.
rather than telling the truth, which is the most painful thing to do, but it's the only thing that sets you free. And the
Mhm.
truth is not my opinion, right? The truth is not my opinion. It's not right or wrong. The truth is what makes my soul sing.
Mhm.
That's my truth. It makes my soul sing, and it allows me to have a positive ripple on the world, and it allows me to hear your position even when it's completely against mine.
Yeah. Love that.
That's really something I talk to my kids about this, and we talk about Trump quite a bit, actually, because their dad has some opinions about him and I have some other opinions about him, and the way to put that into context for them. And I've really learned how much kids, they want to understand, and they want to kind of understand why people are doing certain things that they're doing. And I talk about how nobody is doing things. I don't believe anybody who's doing anything that we consider quote unquote wrong or bad is doing them because they think they're wrong or bad. I firmly believe that Trump thinks he's doing an amazing job and doing the best job ever. And he probably has down days and rough days too. But everyone, if we didn't believe we were doing the best we could and the right thing in the end, we wouldn't. It's a lot of work to do anything. So I think there has to be that, and that comes back to that context piece of what needs to be true for them to do these things. And I feel like that's something that you used to talk about a lot. For me to believe that, what needs to be true, and
what needs to be true for that to be true.
And I remember you saying that over and over whenever we would dig down and get to like, oh, I'm not lovable. And you would say, well, what needs to be true? Well, nobody loves me. And what needs to be true for that? Well, I couldn't have family and friends and people that show. Okay, so they do show up. So I guess that can't be true. So that I really love the way you would do that and walk us through that. And looking at, for anybody who's doing anything that we disagree with, what needs to be true for them to think that this is right and good, and from there we can get context on that behavior instead of, okay, they do it this way, so therefore they are bad, evil, wrong, or whatever the piece is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's just like a nice centered place to land is to simply say, everybody's in pain, everybody's trying to feel better.
Yeah.
Don't care who you are, and the degrees might be different, of course.
Yeah.
Everybody's in pain and they're trying to feel better. And how are they trying to feel better? And so when I look at that guy who's beating the snot out of somebody else at a bus stop as it comes up on my Twitter feed, I'm like, oh, Jesus, that's pretty hard to watch.
Yeah.
And the compassionate side of me can go, wow, that guy, like, can't imagine the level of pain, because I can remember
Yeah.
feeling incredibly violent in my teens because of the violence that I'd been exposed to, because of the violence I'd suffered.
Yeah.
And wanting, even though it wasn't part of me, wanting to be violent, even though it was like I was not going to be good at it and I was probably going to end up more hurt, but it was like I just needed to feel better.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're trying to do what makes us feel better. And the problem with that is that sometimes that means that we're trying to feel better so we don't express.
Yes.
So we repress and deny ourselves because we're trying to feel better, but
Yeah.
it doesn't work. No
Yeah.
more than punching somebody in the head, which seems to be the polar opposite. It's the same thing. As you remember, Kristall, heads and tails are the same coin.
Yeah.
Just because it looks like the opposite doesn't mean it is the opposite. It's
Yeah.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same. I get, we talked about Trump earlier. So I did a profile on Trump, again, his emotional source code. And I said, so your foolish argument is that you're arguing that racists voted for Donald Trump. That's not true. And this was in a political platform. And they said, well, it certainly seems that way. I said, yes, it does seem that way. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at it, 2/3 of the people who voted for Trump are the people who voted for Obama. So how can they have voted for an articulate Black man who was highly educated and vote for a racist who you say is a racist and a bigot and, a misogynist and an ignorant man? How is that possible? Clearly, it's not about those things, is it? And they go, oh, okay, well, what is it? Very simple. These are people who were in pain and felt like no politician was hearing them, and they wanted something different. And Obama said, hope and change. We're going to be different. And then 2 years in, they discovered he was a corporate Democrat. He couldn't do anything more than the rest of them. And they were very sad and disappointed. Then comes along a guy who seems to speak their language, seems to hear them, and says, I'm going to do things differently.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I can talk about what he did. That's a different thing. But my point is that the vote, the context of the vote is not racism. The context of the vote is I was not heard and I just want to be heard. I'm in pain. So yes, I will do that. I will stand on January 6th and go to the Capitol because I'm not heard. I don't matter. I'm going to show that I matter because every human being needs significance. That's all it is. And then we suddenly get there. It's like, oh, okay, now I understand. Rather than judging everybody, it's like, okay, I get it. Because if we go to January 6th and we go to the Capitol on that day and we interview people, there's going to be some nutters there. But I guarantee you there's some nutters in your New Age church. There's some nutters in your football game. There's some nutters in any group you get together as a group of people. There's going to be some nutters. Sure. And we can only focus on the nutters. Everybody there in nutcase? No. There were many of them, but there were also a lot of people who were genuinely there because they believed their freedom was being taken away. Manipulated? I believe it was. But nonetheless, they were not crazy people. They were people who were in pain about something political. And somebody said, here's the solution to your pain. And they went, okay. If somebody says, you're in a lot of pain, here's some heroin. And you go, okay. And then you're hanging out on Hastings Street, living in a tent. Wasn't your plan. Your plan was to ease the pain. You wanted to ease the pain by having more money than your parents had. It wasn't your plan to be a workaholic and dead at 40 because your heart stopped. It wasn't your plan. Your plan was to feel better.
Yes.
No matter what kind of better it is, we're all doing it.
Yeah.
It gives you so much more compassion then when you come from that place.
And I love what you were talking about, that there's, of course, we all want to feel better. That's 100% natural. And denying that we're in pain is the actual number one thing that's going to stop us from getting there. And I think that is such a big piece that everyone needs to hear. And I think especially it really needs to ring through I'd like it to ring through the spiritual community more, that being really honest with where we're at doesn't in any way diminish any kind of growth or any kind of belief or any kind of possibility for more. In fact, it allows us to get there and it allows us to stop pretending. So, yeah.
Listen, take a look at anybody that you hold up. Look at your great gurus, look at whoever you want. Every one of them is flawed.
Yeah.
Right? There's no such thing as a perfect human being. Right? Jesus lost his temper and turned over the tables outside the temple. Moses murdered an Egyptian slave driver, right? David sent Bathsheba's husband to the front line so he could get bumped off and he could get himself some action, right? Solomon had the Queen of Sheba. He built the temple and it was the purest place for God, and he allowed Sheba's idols to come in there because he wanted some booty. I mean, we've all done things. Nobody's perfect. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And there's spiritual dinglings who are like trying to pretend they're perfect. Like, you are the thing I want to stand furthest away from. I would rather stand next to the criminal, whoever it is, than you, because at least I'm going to get something a little more real.
Yes.
And this pretending to be perfect stuff is not spiritual, it's denial.
Yes.
And denial is more than a river in Egypt, right? It's not serving you to be in denial. We've got to own the truth. And the truth is we've all got pain. We're all dealing with that. And when you confront that and you say, well, this is my pain today, then somebody can be there for you. You can allow somebody to be there for you. You can somebody to serve you. And I get it. Listen, I've been the guy on top of the mountain for so many people for so many years, but I have to have my community of people who I can say, listen, Mark, hey, I'm in shit creek right now. Can you bring me a paddle? Because I'm struggling. Can you help me out? Right? We need that. We all need that. Because nobody's a rock. If you're a rock, you're dead.
Yes.
We've all got to get to that place of owning it.
Yeah.
We've got to get to a place of just owning. I'm struggling right now.
Thank you.
Coming on and doing that. And by the way, I'm not talking about wallowing in it. We're not talking about emotionally vomiting on people. We're talking about being present with it yourself so that you can heal.
Yes.
And part of that process is owning your pain, but owning the pain you caused. I talk to people about this all the time. Fucking apologize to your children. And don't do it as some half-assed, I'm sorry, I know I wasn't a great parent. Like, be specific. Apologize to your children. It's the most powerful thing you will ever do for them. Them you love them is lovely. It's wonderful. It's important. But telling them I was a fuck up and here's how I fucked up and I'm really sorry and I wish I'd have done better and I'm trying to do better now is a brand new model that allows them to grow up and have children and learn to apologize to their children when they make a mistake. So their kids go, oh, I don't have to be perfect. No, you're still lovable. And you get to own, instead of saying, I didn't do it, you get to say, yeah, I did it. I'm sorry. Okay, great. We can move right along, Charlie. We can move right along, Susan. That's great. As opposed to, no, you didn't. Now I've got to torture you to get the truth out of you. And you now learn that telling the truth is painful. Well, let's just get to the truth is good. So parents have got to learn this too.
It was from one of your early, one of the first workshops. I can't even remember the name of which one it was. And you talked about, I don't even remember, we were talking about self-esteem and how we felt about ourselves. And, everyone has, I don't feel I'm good enough. I'm not beautiful. I'm not all these things. And then everybody wrote out all these different reasons why I was bullied. My parents told me I was ugly. They pinched my fat rolls every time, whatever the things were. And I remember writing out, I felt I didn't feel beautiful. I didn't feel pretty. And I remember trying really hard. I think he wanted like 5 points or something in the little sheet to fill out. And I was really trying, and I'm like, where did this come from? I wasn't bullied. No one ever told me I wasn't beautiful. Where on earth did I come from? And I think I was really stuck with it. And you had people read out their things. And you came to me and you were kind of helping me dig in on it. And you said, well, what were your role models? What did you experience? How did your mom feel about herself? And I was like, oh, it was what was role modeled to me. It was, and later on, I was able to talk to my sisters who are also beautiful, blonde, never were teased, never were bullied. And we all had the same self-esteem pieces. And we could all identify that it was nothing that was said to us. It was what was role modeled to us, what we saw and experienced. And from that, I was so determined when I had my own children to really walk, doesn't matter the words. I mean, the words are important, but really I've got to feel and because I know they're going to feel it. Even I can say one thing and mean another. And we were told we were beautiful, but we saw, and my dad too, the self-esteem was low, and we saw that and experienced that. And it has been the most humbling experience, even with all those wonderful intentions. Especially my eldest son is so much like me. It is ridiculous. And it gives me so much compassion for my parents raising me, and also the pain that I identified as, oh, the sexual abuse trauma I suffered as a child, that's why I'm like this, and being like this, that's why I'm like this, and being like that, that's being a girl. And then I see my son who has 100% different childhood than me, except that I'm his mother, and genetically, but basically everything else is different. And he sees the world so similarly to how I saw it. His self-esteem is exactly where mine was. He wants to do more in the world, but he doesn't feel good enough. And it's just such an interesting experience to witness that reflected, like you said, that mirror right back at me. Give myself compassion for, yes, those things happened to me and they shaped me. And I also came in with that personality that my son is experiencing, and getting to raise him and nurture him and support him in so many ways, exactly like you said, just like, I'm sorry, I don't know where this came from. I'm doing my best. And to see him discovering his own path through that and getting his own clarity and his own pieces is just, it's such a wonderful eye-opening experience. But it's really shown me how much walking the talk and actually being embodied in what I'm trying to say, and not just the words. And I got that from you, and I'm very grateful for that.
Well, one of the things I said is that, and we did this during the parenting program, we still do it during our private parenting program, is that it's important that your children know they're loved, of course.
Yes.
Right? Of course, that goes without saying. But what's far more important is that your children grow up in a loving environment. And people go, what do you mean? Well, if you are incredibly loving to your kids, and your partners are incredibly loving to your kids, but you're shitty to your partner and your partner's shitty to you, your kids don't grow up in a loving environment.
Yeah.
And what they learn is that love exists while you're a child, and it doesn't exist while you're an adult. So you go, well, how come I was so loving to my kids, and my husband was really loving to my kids, and my wife was really loving to my kids, and my kids have got such shitty self-worth? That's why they grew up in a loveless environment. They grew up in an environment that was not a loving environment, that was empowering to each other's, to the partner, that was validating of the partner, that was loving and affectionate to the partner. All those things have an impact, because we humans are no different than cells. We marinate in our environment.
Yes.
And you're marinating in whatever it is. And if you're marinating in a shitty environment where dad's always depressed and mom's really angry, or mom's really depressed and dad's really angry, or whatever it is, your combination, then that's what you're marinating in.
Yeah.
That's the soup you're swimming around in every single day. Now, meanwhile, they may be blowing in a straw and going, I love you, you're marvelous, but so what? I'm still swimming in this shit every day. That's what counts.
It really does. It really, really does. And I am so grateful that I got that felt understanding sense from you so early on. And of course, we can know it, and then there's living it and embodying it as well. But that's what I always tell my number one parenting advice to parents is, you can give them screen, not give them screen, give them sugar, not give them sugar, bedtime, don't do bedtime. But they, as you happy person, happy parent, number one, whatever's going to make you happy, that is going to be 100% more valuable than any other training, rules, education, diet, 100%. And that's the piece that I really, really just like, if I can give parents one piece, and I feel like I want to tell like all of humanity that same piece too. You want to be a good coach, you want to be a good leader, you want to change the world, you want to impact, be that role model, because that's all we really, and I was going to ask you, how do, in this fast-paced world, you're talking about context, how do we, when we only get a few seconds of people's attention on social media, how do we give them that context that's going to have that impact? And I think that's answering my question, is if it's not authentic, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what wording, what platform, any of that. If it's not coming from that authentic, connected source place, then it doesn't matter what you say.
The truth is that every one of us has bought bullshit at some point, right? You know, you went to the workshop and, oh my God, this person's a guru, you know, whatever, right? You thought this person was the best thing sliced bread and you married them. You know, we've all bought bullshit. We've all done that. But there comes a point, and this is where we lose trust in ourselves. There comes a point when we go, this is off. Something's wrong. And we don't question it. We make ourselves wrong. Instead of going and saying, this seems not right for me. What's going on here? And if that person says, yep, that's your bias, right? And then says, tell me about your bias, and can allow you to confront it with them and can go all the way down that path for you, fantastic. But if they just go, oh, that's your bias, and, you know, get over it, then walk the fuck away. Walk away, right? So we get sold bullshit. The problem is we invest in it. We keep investing in the bullshit because this is the rule of life. It's called the rule of investment. And the rule of investment is I put $10,000 into this fund and it went up to 15 and I was like, woohoo. And then it went down to 12 and I'm still like, well, I'm up 2. And then it went down to 10, right? And I'm like, oh. And then it went down to 9 and I'm now thinking I should have got out when it was at 10.
Yeah.
Because the rule is you can't lose more than you put in, or else you feel terrible about yourself. And so what happens is we go, oh, it's gone down. So I'm going to put another 10 in because it's probably going to go up. And we do that with people. We invest in people who are not investing in us. And if you do that, you'll end up in a very unhappy marriage. You'll end up trying to save your children when they've already taken a path that is incredibly destructive. You'll end up doing that across the board. And this is why in our work, so much of it's about how do you know where your healthy boundaries are? Because most people in our world do not have healthy boundaries. They have walls, which are not boundaries, or they have nothing. So people trample all over them, or they got a wall and I'm not letting you in. Well, neither of those things are healthy.
No.
And you can only build healthy boundaries if you've done the work, or you're doing the work, actively doing the work on and on. And as I said, I'm 65 years old and I've been doing the work since I was 19. I'm still doing the work. And I'll be done when I take my last breath. And they put me in a box, I'll be done. Before then, I won't be done. It's okay. There is no destination.
I love it. As I sort of made sense of the world as a 20-some-year-old,
Last week,
exactly. I saw all these, things that I wanted to be different in the world for myself and for others, hunger and war and all that stuff. And I started to really look at it from a sort of, okay, what's the root cause? What can I do? How can I make the biggest impact on all this stuff? And I really saw that at the root of all of it, it's just people, and they're making decisions from certain emotional states. And Putin wouldn't be going to war if he wasn't very, very afraid and trying to use action to like become safe because he's worried about what's going on. And people who are very secure and feel very safe don't feel the need to attack. And so all that stuff is just based in people in different emotional states taking action. So then I began thinking, okay, well, how can I influence people to, number one, believe that caring where they're at emotionally is important, not just important, but the foundation and the most important thing. And number two, how can they find the path that works for them and actually feel better? And for me, Unite is that the essence of that question and that mission. And I'm curious, I met someone yesterday, and for them, it's nutrition. They're coming up with a new superfood bar that can be really, really amazing in all these ways. And they had the same pitch. They were like, if everyone was just really, really fed and healthy nutritionally, they would feel better. And I was like, great. And so I'm curious for you, I mean, I kind of have a sense of it, but I'd love to hear in your own words, what's that for you? What's your mission, basically? Like, how do you want to impact the world to do that? And how do you see that evolving? What are some of the projects or visions you have?
We've got a lot of things on the go, but for me, it all comes down to the emotional source code of how we create our reality. which you will remember part of it as, it's not the whole thing, but part of it, Kristall used to teach in the matrix of personal reality and how we create our reality, and understanding that rather than judging it, and just understanding, okay, this is how I put my reality together. And I've created a bunch of paradigms that are collections of beliefs that have given me values that are not necessarily mine. And pulling that work apart is vital, because then we stop looking at everybody with those harsh visions and images of them and judgments of them. And we just see everybody's struggling, everybody's trying to do the best. So that for me is so important. But, you know, I'm working on all kinds of things. I'm working on that book right now and another book, which is called The Culture of Belonging for Businesses. And excuse me. And of course, working on the podcasts and all those other things, and writing for LinkedIn. As I told you, I wrote that piece around the girl who was killed in Iran, but I also write on the neuroscience of curiosity and all those kinds of cool things as well. And the last piece I wrote was on the secret neuroscience of charismatic leaders and the connection between Donald Trump and Martin Luther King. That was the last one on LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and follow my newsletter, you'll find all those kinds of things. And I have over 1,000 videos on YouTube as well that are all there. But when I think about what is it that, in the simplest terms, it's there. It's curiosity. It's curiosity. There's a lot of things I'd like to change in the world. Of course, like you, Shine, I'd like to see the end of famine and the end of war and the end of, you know, all the other nonsense.
Yep.
But the truth of the matter is that I believe, even with all the religious studies I've done, love is not the answer. I'd like to believe that, but it's not true. Love is not the answer, because love has a subjective context. Right? What's love to me? Like, so the guy who beats the snot out of his kid and says, "I do this because I love you," genuinely believes it's loving. Genuinely. So love is not the answer. Curiosity is. Curiosity is so neutral. It's so curiosity plus discernment gets me to love. So curious, like, oh, I'm interested. Tell me more about that. That's a fascinating belief. When the special came out on Netflix about flat Earth, first thing I said to my wife is, "Oh, we got to watch that." And she's like, "What? Why?" And I go, "I'm just really fascinated at how they get to that thinking." She goes, "You don't think any of it's true?" I said, "No, but maybe I will when I've seen it." I'm willing to be curious. And so for me, the secret to life, if we're going to really solve some problems, is curiosity. If we're looking at the environment and global warming, let's approach it with curiosity. If we're looking at pedophilia, let's approach it with curiosity. If we're looking at trans issues, let's approach it with curiosity. If we're looking at Donald Trump or Biden or Putin or anybody else, you know, let's look at that with curiosity. Curiosity is the key. Tell me how, like, I want to know how I might be wrong. I had a conversation with a very powerful financial advisor. She is involved in multi-billion-dollar deals where she finances organizations, multi-billion. And we were talking about something, and I said something, and she goes, "That's absolutely wrong." Like, I got it absolutely wrong. And I looked at her and went, "Really?" And she went, "Oh yeah." And I said, "Great, tell me more." And she went, "What?" And I said, "If I've got it wrong, that means I can learn something, because I was pretty sure until this moment. I'm curious. You just breached my bias. That's what I want in my life, is people to breach my bias. Don't just tell me I'm wrong. Tell me why, so that I can learn. If you just tell me I'm wrong, then I can get defensive just like anybody other human being. But if you tell me wrong and you can tell me why, and I can understand, it's like, oh yeah, I completely missed that. Thank you." So curiosity to me is the cure for the world. Let's get a lot more curious.
And that's the only place that creation comes from, is curiosity. We cannot create, everything else is regurgitation.
Of course it is.
So the only way we can create anything new, and if everyone's calling for change and lasting change or any alteration to the current state of things, the only thing that can get us there is curiosity, because we need that curiosity to brainstorm, to come up with ideas, to have thoughts, to try stuff that doesn't work, to get to creating whatever it is that we're looking for.
Right. It's just
Love
that curiosity gives us a way to reinvent, not to tinker, but to reinvent, to completely create something new. This is so powerful for us if we just decide to become curious about whatever it is. Get curious about the things you don't believe in. Get curious about the things that you would fight against. Get curious about the things that you think are absolutely wrong. Get curious about them, and then you'll understand somebody else better. And hey, you might learn some shit instead of staying in your bubble with the other dingleberries who believe what you believe. And I'm calling myself out on it too. I'm not giving you advice I don't follow.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, it really is. I mean, that's where creativity comes from. And for me, you'll be able to tell me this. I always quote the Bible where Jesus said, "I don't speak unless he speaks through me." Is that accurate?
Yep.
And I used to really love that. I love that. And I would say that I want to live like that. I want to be inspired. I want to be an example of someone who's walking in that openness where I can be guided, not just regurgitating actions or ideas, but actually be inspired and be moving from that place of, I want to do this. Why? Because it feels good, because I want to, not because I should, or I've done it before or whatever. And that's exactly what you're saying is, I mean, that's the difference.
It's the difference between education and educat. Education is shoving shit in your head and getting you to regurgitate it. Educat comes from the Greek, which means to draw out.
Oh, beautiful.
Love
right?
that.
And inspiration is inspiritus. Inspiritus is to have the spirit rise from me. I want to live in inspiritus. I want to have the flow of that which is abundantly creative flow through me. And the minute I cut that off and say, no, it's not, it can only be this way, I've cut off inspiritus. I'm now regurgitating education rather than being in educat, which is drawing forth.
Yeah.
So curiosity gives us inspiritus.
Yeah.
And it gives us that real sense of educat. Like, what is it within me that I need to draw out? What do I need to shove in? Tony, who I talked about before, who I spoke at the UN with, he said once in a presentation we were doing together, he goes, I came to all your workshops and all your programs. And he goes, and it was really interesting. He goes, because the amount of things that I learned was enormous. Like he said, I couldn't even begin to right now tell you all the things I learned. And he goes, and yet every time I left one of those programs, I felt like I left with less, not more. And I said, that was always my goal.
Yeah.
Is to pull the shit away
to
reveal you. You are a diamond. Let's rub off all this shit you got on the outside. Let's polish that baby.
I love it. We had booked this till 6. Do you have a few more minutes?
I do.
Is there anyone on the call who has any questions and would like to pick Dov's brain? Anything you're curious about? And that's okay if not. Dov, is there anything that you want to share or ask?
No, I want people to know that they can, if you want to find me, you can find me, of course, at dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com. It's right there if you're watching this. But, like I said, there are the podcasts. You can find both the podcasts. Curiosity Bites is the long form one that is, goes into all different subjects from quantum physics to neuroscience to psychology to theology and religion and all those kinds of things. You're interested in that, those are in there too. There's conversations with a theologian who believes that God is a code writer and that the world is made of code. So there's all kinds of things. And a Cambridge, a Cambridge professor who is a theologian. And also, for those of you who are sci-fi guys, the guy who was the set designer for Star Trek.
Nice.
So, it's a pretty wide variety of subjects. And then leadership and loyalty is everything that relates to leadership, both in a personal sense of self-leadership and in a corporate sense. That's there. And of course, tons of books on Amazon that you can get, and some of them are, I think there's even a couple of free ones that are on there for ebooks.
Yeah.
But you know, what I want to say is, like, look at in your life, look at where, like, be brave. And I know it takes bravery, it takes courage. Be brave and ask the people around you to tell you the truth, tell you where you seem to have a fixed mindset, where you have made up your mind about something. Oh, religion's shit, or, you know, new age stuff is bullshit, or, you know, all the scientists are corrupt, or there is no global warming, or, you know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter, right? But where you have got a fixed, dug in opinion, and ask them to tell you the truth, and sit with that, and, like, you know, and you have to bruise your tongue, bite down on it, and not answer back, and go, okay, and write it down, and go, what is it I possibly don't know that can open my mind here? Now, the answer to that is, I don't know, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yes.
But by starting that curious question, you start to set your mind to look for things you didn't understand. And one of my great teachers many, many, many years ago, probably 40 years ago, said to me, go away and study something you think is wrong, and then come back and tell me what was right about it. 4 weeks. I went 4 weeks, and I went and studied this particular subject, which I was convinced was complete horseshit. Like, I would have argued up and down it was horseshit. And at the end of 4 weeks, I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense, to such a degree that I flew to New York to meet the guy who wrote the book. And he was writing the book that was a translation of hieroglyphs from ancient times.
Wow.
And he was the world's leading expert on it. And he was a grumpy old bastard. And I'm so glad I went and met him, because he died the following year. But, like, what a brilliant man, brilliant man at translating these hieroglyphs, these old Sumerian hieroglyphs that nobody else understood. It's like, wow. And guess what I found out? He didn't just translate those, he translated a bunch of other hieroglyphs for other faiths and other backgrounds. And so it's like, yeah, this is not some crazy guy who's living in his mom's basement, smoking joints and making shit up. You know, this is an old guy who's dedicated his life to this. And something was like, okay, now my mind has shifted. So it's like, so your life will just become, my point is, your life will become richer if you become curious. Everything about your life becomes so delicious because you get curious. And like I said, try it with a food. Like, decide on something you've decided is going to be terrible, that you would never eat, and then eat it. Get somebody to help you eat it within a week, and just notice what you notice. Now, you might go, bleh, that's fine. But you'll have a reason for going, bleh, other than what you made up your mind about.
Amazing. Thank you. This has been such I love how broad and the conversation seems, but really it is all, again, just kind of back to the same points of, like you said, bravery, curiosity, context. And I feel like even asking for yourself for context, and what is the context of other people's perspectives or opinions or beliefs, all of that is bravery too, because it's any time that we're challenging the way we think, we need to be brave to do that, and then carry on the bravery through that to maybe implement and admit that we want to change our perspective or opinion to grow. So,
Are you courageous enough to be wrong?
yes.
Right? Because only when you're courageous enough to be wrong about the thing you've made up your mind about will you discover what you're actually capable of. We hang on to mediocrity. And in the process of it, we strangulate everything that is vast. Right? We strangulate everything that is expansive that we can have, because we're hanging on to the comfort of mediocrity. You know, I don't want comfort in that way. I want comfort just as much as anybody else, but I don't comfort in that way. I don't want to take comfort in my misery. I don't want to take comfort in being right. I want to take comfort in expanding and growing and coming to the world with something that will awaken not just myself, but maybe another.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm thinking of something that I was like, why don't I be more I forget what you were saying, but like we're going through something right now that feels stressful, but I feel ashamed to even talk about it or
Right.
like tell people about it. And I was thinking like that must come up all the time. What do you I mean, and that's kind of like with the food. Do you just suggest that you just kind of do it to get over it, or what do you do to kind of get past that?
Shine, I will tell you something that I want you to really hear.
Yeah.
I fell 120 feet, not off a mountain, but off a self-imposed pedestal, and I landed on my ego. Get off the fucking pedestal.
Yeah.
Get off the fucking pedestal. You're not helping anybody standing up there being in pain and not owning that this is painful.
Yeah.
You become far more of an influence, far more of an inspiration when you can share that struggle.
Yeah.
When you can reach out and ask for help. The bravest people are the ones who ask for help. The ones who don't, you know what they do? Suicide, mate. We hear about them all the time. These incredible extroverted, always funny, always friendly, always loving, and then they fucking top themselves. Twitch from Ellen. Like, what a lovely man. He was friendly and warm and kind, right? And gregarious. And people said when he walked in the room, he lit up the room. He topped himself with 2 small kids. And his wife didn't know. Why? It wasn't her fault.
No.
Because he was on a pedestal of I've always got to be up for everybody else. Well, you can't be up for anybody else if it's an act. So you got to ask for help. You got to state what's going on. If you come back and you say what's going on, people have so much more respect for you. And by the way, if they don't have respect for you when you share it with them, great. See ya. Bye-bye. This is not somebody you want to be around.
Yes.
It's not somebody you want to be around. You don't want to be around a bunch of sycophants who are telling you how wonderful you are. I've been there, mate. I fell off the mountain because of it. It's shitty. It's shitty because you go home and you know you lied and it doesn't feel good. There's no integrity to it. But when you go, listen, I'm struggling right now. I'd like to help you, Betty. I'd like to help you, Fred. I'd like to help you, whoever you are. But right now I'm having a really tough time. So I need a bit of a breathing space. Go talk to Kristall or go talk to Fred or go talk to Ethel. I'm just not available right now.
Yeah.
Why? Because I'm in my shit.
Yeah.
Just like everybody else. I'm in my shit. I'll be out of it. I know I can come out of it, but I'm going to go get some help. Oh, okay, great. Wow. So now you're telling me I should get help, but I see that you do it too. Oh, great. You're not just bullshitting me about getting help. That's why I thought we're right back to where we started.
Yeah.
If you're a coach, do the fucking work.
Yeah.
Right? Don't talk about it unless you're doing it. Drink your own Kool-Aid. And I'm not just talking about it to you, Shine. I'm talking to all of us.
Yeah.
Drink your own Kool-Aid. If you're not willing to do the walk, shut the talk.
All right. So this is for the Unite community. We are struggling financially right now, and it's hard to even say. And if anyone has any ideas, support, resources, wants to chat, it's a real thing, and it's tough and it's intense. I know it's going to work out, but now you know.
Let's not do that.
Sure.
Let's take it deeper.
Tell me.
Right. Let's take it deeper. We're struggling financially. What are the implications of that? Because right now you just made a vague statement and I don't know what to do with that. So what's the consequences of that?
Yeah, I mean,
you can say, well, I know it's going to work out. That's fine. But that doesn't tell me what the potential consequences are.
Yeah, gosh. I mean, it's for the first time, it feels like there's more being asked of us financially than we know where it's going to come in. And it's starting to like get squeezed. And it's like, okay, I don't really know where that thing is going to come from because we've sort of taken on so much that it's the first time. Well, that's the first time, but it's at that point where it's like, we're not sure where the next chunk is going to come from, and we're doing our best. And I do know it is going to work out, but
maybe it's squeezing you. Maybe it's squeezing you into a place where you have to get rid of something you think is true that's not true. It's squeezing you into a place where you have to question something you're holding as an absolute that is not an absolute. That's always what happens. When I fell off the mountain, I kept saying, I'm great, I'm coming back. But it was bullshit. right? Because I needed to crash. It took me 18 months. I needed that. And every day was horrible and painful. But looking back, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't go away from it.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I'd have given it away in a second.
Yeah.
So what do you need? We're in a financial struggle. Okay, here's a quarter. Feeling any better? Got some money. What do you need?
Yeah.
Be specific.
I mean, we want to raise 2 million US for the company, and that would be
But what do you need?
that.
That's what you want. That's not what you need.
That's what we want. What we need is I mean, at least $10,000 to help take care of immediate things and get us to the next place.
Right. Do people pay to be part of the community?
They pay to come to our events. Yeah.
Do they pay to be part of the community outside of that?
No.
No, right now. No.
How many people are in the community?
We've got some Facebook groups with like 4,000 or 5,000 people, so I'm guessing around that number.
$3 a month each person. That's what we need from you. It's not going to break your bank. We need $3 a month from you in order to keep us going, keep us growing.
Right.
We've been generous. We've given you everything we possibly can, but now, that tit has run dry. So now we need $3 a month from you, and that's all we're going to do. And if you come in at $3 a month, when we get much bigger and it goes to $30 a month, you'll still be in the $3 a month category. We'll hold you there for 4 years or 5 years or 2 years or in a year or whatever it is. But we need $3 a month. Shine, please tell me, what do you need?
$3 a month.
From who?
From everyone in our community.
Thank you. How do they sign up for that, Shine?
We can create a monthly PayPal subscription and put it online.
Patreon.
How do I do that, Shine?
Patreon.
I'm inspired by today's program. I've heard you. I heard what you need. How do I do that? How do I sign up for that to pay $3 a month?
Yeah. If you go to unite.love, at the very top, there will be a post with a way to sign up for that.
Thank you, Shine.
yeah.
Now I know how I can support your community is what your people are saying.
Yeah.
But you left it vague.
Yeah.
And that's to do with your shit that you've got to deal with.
Totally.
Right? That's free. That's free from me, by the way. I'm giving you that. This is your shit to deal with. $3 a month. Nobody's going to miss $3 a month, even in hard times.
Yeah.
Most of us can do $3 a month. And I'm guarantee you, listen, I know what I charge an hour. And I know anybody who's watching this got a hell of a lot more than $3 worth.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's just on this one alone, and I know you have lots of other people who added tons of value, $3 a month, come on. Even if you watch this one 3 times, 5 times, you got more than your $3 a month. So $3 a month is not going to kill you. It's going to not really impact you, but it can make a massive difference in the Unite community. We need you. Please go to what is it? Tell me.
Unite.love.
Unite.love. Go to the top of the page at the top there. You'll get a post. You'll see where you can sign up for this. I want you to sign up for it. And I want you to go there. And I want you to tell them that you're grateful. Tell Shine and Kristall that you're grateful for them having the courage to ask for what they need, that you are an example to them. Thank you.
Thanks, Dov.
Consider your ass kicked.
you made her cry. Good job.
Well, I told you about the shoes, didn't I?
Love
Get the shoe in the ass. I waited to the end of the show to give it to you, Shine. Got it.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
You're very welcome, guys.
Yeah.
Right. And somebody said, all we can do, somebody's just written here. I just saw it pop up.
Or we can give more.
Or we can give more, right?
Yeah. We'll make it, a scale.
You can say minimum 3.
Yeah.
And other donations are acceptable. Fantastic. Somebody says, I'm getting $20 a month of value. I'm getting $100 a month of value, getting $1,000 of value. Fantastic. We can accept that. But please, a minimum of $3 a month with a commitment to stay with it. Okay.
Yeah. I think we'll
you
start
pay more than that for a
Patreon.
cup of bloody Starbucks. Come on.
Yeah. We'll start a Patreon. We'll have different levels, different perks. That's a great idea.
Beautiful.
Yeah. We could definitely use that. And so thank you. Appreciate you, Dov.
Thank you, Dov.
Yeah. This is really lovely. Really beautiful conversation and great way to end it.
Anytime you have anyone in your community or yourself that we can send our community love to, that we can support in any way, or any organization that needs a boost, please do reach out to us, and we'd love to send that out to our community. Yeah,
Thank you. I'd love people to go to, if they're on LinkedIn, to go to LinkedIn and sign up for my newsletter and start reading that. And certainly the anytime you can go to the podcasts and subscribe to the podcast. It's important to subscribe to Curiosity Bites, All Leadership and Loyalty. Leave a review. That would be awesome. Really appreciate that.
Got it.
Thank you so much.
We'll add all that into our next email.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. This has just been
Thank you.
such a treat.
Yeah.
You're very
Really
welcome.
special. Beautiful.
Thank
Well
you
done.
very much. Thank you
Thank
to
you.
everybody who I can see or I couldn't see, who I couldn't hear. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for spending the time. Thank you for investing your energy to be with us. And I hope you felt that your ass is a little bit sore and that your heart is a lot more full.
I love
Thank
it.
you.
Bye,
Appreciate
guys.
it. Talk soon.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.